This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. And you two up there in the sky.
Ruth, I'm standing here at the Bernie Rally in front of the War Memorial on South and Main Street in Danbury, Connecticut. I'm with a friend of mine who's Rob Garavel, and I just have a few questions about what his thoughts are on Bernie and his candidacy.
First, Jan, I want to thank you for interviewing me not only here, but also on our issues of war and peace, which is so essential. We've been here for 9 years doing that, trying to promote a world of greater peace. And I do appreciate your giving us the opportunities. But what we're doing here today, and we've been doing this this is our third event, this is our third rally. We're here to promote Bernie Sanders for president. For those viewers are not aware of who Mr. Sanders is, he's a senator from Vermont who was also a congressman up there, a state legislator, and has drawn a great deal of popularity up there in his tenure in all three of those positions. Very popular in Vermont, and now he's running for president. And he's doing this, he's made tremendous strides, and one of the tremendous accomplishments he has, he's not taking any PAC money, he's not taking the big money that the other candidates are. He does have a large treasury, but that's all based on the average donation of being somewhere around $35 or $40. So this is a grassroots campaign. Many people have supported, but he refuses to take the big money that has tainted, tarnished, and really caused a lot of divisiveness in our system today.
Do you believe he's telling the truth and he's going to follow through with a lot of his campaign promises?
No one questions his honesty. No one. I mean, even his enemies do not question his honesty. I love it. Republicans like John McCain and Ron Paul, they've all said that he's one of the most honest men in politics, except for they might say themselves are. But
I think that a social democrat is a socialist, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the social democrat piece, because that's something that is missed. And at one point he did come out and say, I'm a socialist, and he did say that without the social democrat part. But that being said, all of his stances have not been strictly for what many would perceive as socialism or communism. He's for civil rights. He's for civil liberties, which is why someone who's more libertarian can stand behind him, because he doesn't support NSA spying on citizens without warrant or reason. He doesn't support the Patriot Act. Okay? So people who think that he's socialist and that he wants to control your lives, his record shows different. His records show he's for independent rights and civil liberties. Is in essence, it's democracy as we see it now, but for the good of the whole, as opposed to a narrow field of capitalism where it's for the people who have the most influence. Democratic socialism says we all are in this together and we're all looking out for each other. That's not the ideology of capitalism.
No, it isn't.
So he would never say he's a capitalism, and majority of Americans who know capitalism in its most truest form wouldn't support it as well, which is why polls show that more than half of Americans are more comfortable with the term socialism.
Democratic socialists want the abolition of capitalism in its entirety. This is not what Sanders is going to, Senator Sanders is representing. He's representing a regulation on labor, a regulation on corporation. He's for an increase in the minimum wage to $15 an hour, where corporations can show profits that they can afford to pay that. Small businesses, he's going to go very cautious with. He's not going to inundate any small businesses by excessive labor costs, and that may be in small businesses, but I think the proven fact is a lot of these corporations could well afford to pay their employees $15 an hour, and then what's ever left over, maybe we could give some of it to Wall Street.
What is your opinion of his strengths and weaknesses in his run?
Well, I think one of the concerns that people have, we dealt with President Obama, the issue of racism that reared its ugly head again in Ferguson and Baltimore and other places throughout our country. I think one of the things we're dealing with now is we have a female candidate, and we would love to see a candidate who is qualified, but we don't want to have what I call genderism. That is supporting a lady, just supporting a person just because he's a lady. Bernie's down the line on all the issues as far as women's rights, and if you look at his record, he's a lot more progressive on women's rights than Ms. Clinton. So I think one of the concerns is, one, his appearance. He doesn't look physically appealing. He doesn't have the telegenic, he's telegenic, he's very good at speaking, but he's gray, and people vote on things that are superficial. Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan had one thing in common. They both had beautiful heads of hair. I think Bernie Sanders, and it's amazing, and what's really impressive is, on poll after poll, he has garnered like 80% of the support of young people. And what does that say? Young people are concerned about the problems of our country. Our country belongs to all of us, but to the young people, it belongs to them more. And I try to encourage him, keep up with your ideals on your issues of war and peace. He's for veterans. He's for a de-emphasis on sending troops over. He did not vote with George W. for the entry into the war with Iraq. Hillary Clinton did, and she has said, I made a mistake. Bernie Sanders didn't make that mistake, and that mistake cost thousands of lives and trillions of dollars. It's kind of immoral to talk about money when it comes to lives, because I always put that, I agree with what you're saying. But when you talk about young people coming back maimed, psychologically disturbed, and Hillary made a mistake. So I think we can look at, I think this is a people's movement. This is a movement of people that are genuinely concerned about the direction we're going in our country. And I think he offers a viable alternative to the status quo, and I think he said it very nicely when he said, this isn't about me, this is about the people that were standing behind him, who were his campaign supporters. So I think people have a sense of hope with Mr. Sanders, and that's not, I don't think, delusional. I think when the dust all settles, this movement will come forward and build a coalition to deal with whoever is the nominee.
What are his strengths and his weaknesses in his campaign that he's going through?
I believe his first and foremost strength is his record and his consistency and honesty. The reason that the youth vote has gone strongly to Bernie is because they see the name, they see Bernie Sanders, who is that? They go online, they look at his record, and they look at him when he was standing up for LGBT rights in the 80s, okay, when he was against the Gulf War, the Iraq War, and these conflicts that, you know, Monday morning quarterback, everybody says, oh, those were a mistake. Well, he called it in from the beginning. He's the one who understood the impact what Glass-Steagall would have on our country. So that type of judgment and record is driving him forward so strongly with those who research it. I would say, statistically speaking, and the reason you're seeing his growth in the polls, the momentum behind him, is because the more people know about Bernie, the more that people know him, the more likely they are to support him. And I do not want this to come across too harshly, but I'm just going to point out, the more that people know about Hillary, the less likely they are to support her. The more that they know about her true record. It's one thing to have paid ads out there. There we go, a Trump supporter. It's one thing to have paid advertisements saying what you say now. It's one thing to have the majority of the establishment supporting you, and it's another to have been consistently right and consistently on the points. I would say his biggest weakness with liberals is his more moderate stance on gun restrictions. Okay, and that's actually another good point between the two is they say that, you know, no one's, you know, that how could Bernie get anything done? Well, Bernie's creating this revolution. It's to make things very clear. When people say he cannot change the healthcare, he cannot change corporate finance and do all these things, they are absolutely right. He cannot do that by himself. The president does not have the authority to do that by himself. What he needs is he needs the support of Congress. He needs the legislative branch in order to implement these changes. It's no different with Hillary Clinton. Okay, Hillary Clinton will continue to divide, you know, the Republicans from the Democrats, and if the Republicans still hold the majority, she's not going to get anything done either. But to your point about his weakness with being more moderate on the gun issue, he comes from a rural state. The majority of America, at least by landmass, is rural. Okay, it is different for them. It is more decisive for them for someone to say, we're going to take your guns away. Okay, and that's where some liberals might support Hillary a little bit more, because they see her as being more controlling of guns, and he's a little bit more moderate in that regard. But that's also where he unites the middle of America, the Americans who do support the right to bear arms, which I am one of them.
Thank you for coming down, John. And I'd like to say we're going to be here every Saturday, like you said, John, on the corner of South and Main and Danbury, 1 to 2 p.m. And you know something? This campaign has gone a long way on small donations, and we also say it's the small donations that are important, but it's the small efforts. No effort is too small. Many small efforts amount to make a big difference. So whatever you can do, we have Bernie's website that you can check out on what is happening locally and throughout the country and how you can help this campaign be a success. Thanks, Jim.
Get big money out of politics. Reverse climate change. Equality and dignity for all. Yeah, Bernie, our man, has a plan. As they say in Second City Comedy Improvisation, Bernie's plan works for every woman, child, and man in this land.